In 300 BCE, a merchant named Zeno was sailing near Athens when his ship sank. In a single afternoon, he lost his cargo, his fortune, and his social standing. His entire livelihood sat at the bottom of the sea. Zeno wandered the streets of Athens as a man stripped of his former identity. He was penniless, anonymous, and searching for a reason to continue. He walked into a bookshop and discovered a text about Socrates. The book's description of internal resilience sparked an immediate pivot. He stopped mourning his lost wealth and began searching for a way to live that didn't depend on it. When Zeno asked where he could find such a man, the shopkeeper pointed out the window to Crates the cynic. Zeno abandoned his old life on the spot, following the philosopher into a radical new existence. This catastrophe served as a necessary catalyst. By losing everything material, Zeno was forced to engineer a definition of value that could never be sunk by a storm. Zeno's personal ruin mirrored a larger geopolitical collapse. Alexander the Great was dead, and his empire had dissolved into decades of war between rival generals. Before this chaos, Aristotle's formula for a good life was the standard. He argued that flourishing required virtue, but also a baseline of physical health, wealth, and civic standing. In this new era, Aristotle's formula became a trap. Warring kings could confiscate property or end a life on a whim. If your happiness required a stable political world, you lived your life as a hostage to fortune. Zeno proposed a harder premise. If a good life is truly good, it must benefit a person regardless of their external circumstances. He realized that a philosophy tied to the health of the state or the size of a bank account was built on sand. He needed something indestructible. This need for resilience led to the foundational Stoic exercise found in Epictetus's Enchiridion. It requires drawing a sharp psychological line between what belongs to us and what does not. The dichotomy of control functions as a sorting mechanism between our internal will and external reality. Health and wealth can be destroyed. Stoics sorted these indifferents outside our power. But four virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, are choices, locking securely into our own power. By detaching the definition of good from unpredictable external outcomes, the Stoic builds an inner life that remains intact even when the outside world falls apart. Stoicism functioned as a rigorous, hourly discipline rather than an abstract theory. This practice enabled Epictetus, born into slavery with zero societal power, to maintain his agency. When his master broke his leg, Epictetus used this mental framework to render the physical abuse irrelevant to the freedom of his mind. His master owned his body, but had no authority over his judgment. For centuries later, Marcus Aurelius applied the same framework from the opposite extreme. As emperor, he held absolute power over the Roman world. Aurelius governed through a catastrophic plague and border wars, while consciously releasing his grip on the results he could not guarantee. He focused on acting justly, accepting that the success of his policies was outside his control. Whether you are a slave or an emperor, the Stoic conclusion remains the same. True agency relies strictly on governing your own responses. We must ask if this mental fortress is actually a self-imposed prison. By making ourselves invulnerable, do we also make ourselves less human? Friedrich Nietzsche viewed Stoicism as a form of self-tyranny. He argued that the constant policing of our own responses trains us to ignore the very instincts that drive us. Nietzsche proposed a psychological trade-off. When you lower your capacity for pain and grief, you simultaneously amputate your capacity for deep joy. To Nietzsche, suffering is the environmental condition required for growth. A tree that grows tall requires the violence of the storm to thicken its bark. Stripping away the pain of life results in a smaller, numb existence. The Stoic finds safety, but at the cost of the intensity that makes life worth living. This tension becomes even more acute when we witness systemic injustice. The Stoic sorting mechanism forces a difficult question upon the modern practitioner. If the loss of property and external events are truly indifferent, what motivation remains to fight for those who are being oppressed? We have to decide if this discipline provides the cold clarity needed to fight for justice effectively, or if it quietly grants us permission to endure conditions we should be refusing to accept. It creates an unresolved choice between maintaining emotional invulnerability and remaining vulnerable enough to engage with a broken world. The Stoic framework functions as a double-edged technology. It provides a shield against the volatility of the world, yet places the full weight of moral responsibility on the individual's internal judgment.